Well, good morning, everyone. I'm George Kokosalakis. As Konstantinos said, I'm an assistant professor here at the American College of Greece and a maritime professional, among other things. And, well, when Konstantinos, my dear friend and colleague, suggested that I could discuss about the maritime industry and entrepreneurial ventures in the maritime industry, I was curious. I told him, are there any young people that they want to start a new venture in the maritime industry? I could do that in a single slide. I would say, so you want to start an entrepreneurial venture in the shipping sector? For your sake, don't. But nevertheless, okay, jokes aside, as I said, I'm a maritime professional, and we can move on a little bit. So what I think that we have 45 minutes. So during the next 45 minutes, I will discuss about my personal path. And for people that know me, well, I don't particularly like to discuss about myself. But here, what we are going to discuss mainly is not what I have achieved, but certainly my navigation towards the great ideas I supposedly wanted to have. And secondly, about my failures and how we can learn out of them. And I won't hide that. I had a lot of failures. I'm not going to state all of them here, obviously, but I'm going to state a few of them just, out of your educational purpose. After that, we shall discuss about a few myths and facts about entrepreneurship and building your entrepreneurial venture, what you can do in order to build your entrepreneurial venture, whether in shipping or not, okay? And finally, we can discuss about lessons learned or not learned out of my path. I will suggest a few aspects, technological aspects, on starting an entrepreneurial venture at the maritime industry. And finally, you will have time to ask questions in case you do have any. Okay? I think that this is a good plan for us. So first things first, a few things about the talents. I started as a hardcore engineer. A good friend of mine is discussing about me as being an interdisciplinary engineer because I started by very traditional engineering here in Greece, civil engineering from National Technical University of Athens. And then I moved to the States and I studied more engineering again, but I shifted towards higher, new technologies, active control, optimization, artificial intelligence, again, applications in engineering, and I ended up at electrical engineering, computer science, building wireless sensor networks for civil infrastructure. So that was a little bit the path of my studies. Then I did parallel studies in management, which I hated, but I hated at the time, but they were very helpful later on. So don't demonize, being a manager later on. So this is a second trait, second hat, as Konstantinos wants to say. The final one is that I always wanted to build my own venture, my own entrepreneurial venture, and I did build a lot. Most of them failed, but nevertheless, I've built already a few companies in construction, in renewable energy, in wireless sensor networks, in shipping. And these are the things that we are going to see today. And let's see a little bit. Let's discuss a little bit about before we do that, a few things about my appointments, the academic appointments. As my dear friend Konstantinos said, I'm an assistant professor here at the School of Business and Economics, teaching entrepreneurship management and shipping management courses. Then I'm also the executive director of the Center of Excellence in Logistics, Shipping and Transportation. I do some of my research also in collaboration with the University of Patras. And finally, I'm an educational counselor for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, identifying bright, talented young people that they want to continue their studies, graduate studies at MIT in the United States. As far as the professional appointments, the entrepreneurial appointments are concerned, I'm the founder and something else in several companies, starting from traditional construction companies, renewable energy companies. I've built companies about monitoring of civil infrastructure, and a few rounds of shipping companies that, one after the other, they're going well or not. Okay? So, again, enough about this. Let's discuss and see what we can learn out of my personal path, about my personal dreams, about things that I've wanted to follow. And, well, before I graduated I was in the United States, studying at MIT. I was looking around. I thought that I had to find a bright idea. I was somewhere more or less in your position, trying to identify the brightest idea that would bring me in the spotlight. I would create a seminal dissertation. Everybody would talk about me. Obviously, I failed, okay, because nobody knew what I was doing back then, 25 years ago, but I learned something out of it. Obviously, I graduated, okay, so don't get me wrong. I did get my doctorate degree, but what I got out of the process is that unless you invent something radically new, research is an innovative process that builds a little bit, extends a little bit the state of the art. And this is a truly important lesson for each one of us. You cannot do everything yourself. So don't look around for the best and brightest idea, because it's not going to happen as such. But you can read, you can study, you can build on what already exists and innovate by combining different things, as we shall discuss a little bit, in what follows. So, first dream, first failure. Thank you very much. Again, lots of lessons learned around, out of this failure, but very nice one, outcome for us to observe. Second, after I graduated, I was in the United States, and I thought, being, an entrepreneur by nature, that I could build my own entrepreneurial venture. And I was a doctor from a prominent university. I had 3 patents out of my graduate degree. Excellent, very nice. And I wanted to build a company building infrastructure, combining my 2 hats at the time, being a civil engineer and an electrical engineer of some sort. Creating wireless sensor networks for civil infrastructure. Very novel idea at the time. Excellent. The market was there, as we shall see, but I failed, again, for quite a different purpose, quite a different reason. Well, I was an immigrant. I had to reside in the United States for some period of time, and I was allowed to remain there for as long as my visa was valid. And I couldn't build my entrepreneurial venture soon enough in order to sponsor me to get a resident permit in the United States. Nobody was hurt. I didn't build my entrepreneurial venture, but I worked in the field, and I gained significant experience. So lesson learned at this stage is that, well, work experience, even though it's not mandatory for you to build your entrepreneurial venture, many successful entrepreneurs have dropped college. They didn't even graduate, and we all know them. But nevertheless, work experience doesn't hurt. It gives you experience in the field. So again, don't demonize, oh yeah, I worked for a big corporation and what I'm going to do now, I'm doomed, I'm never going to be an entrepreneur anymore. No, it's not going to happen. You will have opportunities in what follows. Okay? Third dream. Again, I failed. After rolling around the United States for a period of time, like 10 years, I returned back to Greece, and I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to build my own businesses, and I started, I had the idea of, I want to live in Greece, but I wanted to work abroad, something that the pandemic actually proved that it is feasible. But nevertheless, at the time, and because in Greece we do have ship owners as being the most prominent ones and attracting spotlight and being very successful and very wealthy and all of these things, I thought, okay, I'm going to diversify my portfolio. Obviously, I'm going to have a construction company. Thank you very much. I was a civil engineer at the time. But nevertheless, I wanted to invest in energy. I saw that coming in renewable energy, and I had to work a little bit on that. And I invested in shipping, in traditional shipping, not in the way that I would suggest that you should go forward. And obviously, I failed for different reasons in each one of these ventures. And now I'm running the third iteration of each one of these companies. For example, here in the shipping industry, my first failure was for a totally different reason. It was not, well, obviously the market was not that good the time that I entered, but the main reason for my original failure was that my partner at the time could not sustain the pressure. And unfortunately, he turned into an alcoholic. So I had to shift, I had to change, I have to radically restructure the company myself. So again, you see that you will run into risks later on from many different perspectives. Nevertheless, we move on. You need to have persistence, as we shall see in what follows. So these were the dreams that I had, and I keep on working on them, okay? So you should never stop working on your dreams. So what we figured out from the road to startup, we always know and we anticipate that it will be an uphill towards our target. We do set milestones, and we think that with some considerable amount of effort, we will succeed. It is quite unfortunate that throughout the process, we will find out that we will have to overcome a few obstacles, a few hurdles that we never anticipated before. And that's a problem. I mean, we will have to improvise, we will have to identify new solutions, things that we never anticipated in the past. Nevertheless, I mean, obviously the reality is the second road. I mean, you will certainly face problems throughout your entrepreneurial ventures that you would never anticipate. But nevertheless, reaching your target or proceeding forward would need for you to improvise and to be persistent at your target. Let's now break a few myths or stereotypes, if you wish to say, about entrepreneurs. And the first one is that you need a lot of money to start your business. We know of many successful entrepreneurs, billionaires now, that they started with minimal investment. They started with out-of-pocket money with very minimal amount of money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, capital is a significant resource, but there are ways for you to find money in the way as you proceed. The second thing is that you need a great idea. Well, I think that we've established that already from the beginning. It is not the brightest idea, the breakthrough that will make you successful. There are many parameters that you need to follow, that you need to consider in order to be successful. And the greatest of ideas is not the single precursor of success. Obviously, you need to have an idea, but mostly we identify opportunities on the market, and we identify things, and we are going to discuss about opportunities in what follows very briefly. The third stereotype, that the bigger the risk, the larger the reward, is certainly a stereotype that we need to break. I mean, obviously you will take risks, but make them, try to mitigate them, study, educate, make educated guesses on how to mitigate them. It's not for you to take risks. If I take a risk, the risk of jumping off a cliff, most certainly I will get hurt. If I take all the measures, everything that I want to, that I anticipate ahead of me, in order to mitigate those risks or totally dissolve these risks, then you'll be successful. So, yes, take risks, but make them make educated guess of how to mitigate them. A business plan is required for success. My friends here at business school would tell me that, yeah, it is mandatory to have a business plan. And yes, thank you very much. It's very good to have a business plan in order for various reasons, but it's not a precursor of success again. You don't really need a business plan to become successful, but you need a business plan, obviously, to go on and maybe attract financing. But most importantly, a business plan is the process of putting down on paper your thoughts. And this process of writing down how you will overcome all these obstacles will make you think thoroughly of how to make things better in the future, of how to reduce, to minimize risk, if you wish to say that. So it's not a precursor of success, the business plan. It's not mandatory, but it is useful. Entrepreneurship is for the young and reckless. Well, it is a common misconception that entrepreneurs are always young people. Again, yes, there is an advantage of being young. You've got less personal restrictions, as we shall see later on. But I've known many successful entrepreneurs that they have been in their middle age, at least, to say the least. So it's not for the young and reckless. It is for somebody that has the mentality and wants to go over the process of building his or her new venture. Finally, entrepreneurship cannot be taught. We think of entrepreneurs as being, talented people, that they were born as such. Well, entrepreneurship is a discipline, and as a discipline, it can be taught. There are ways to train yourself to think as an entrepreneur. And actually, this is going to follow in the next two slides. So what I wanted to say is that as an entrepreneur, you have to be creative and you have to look out for opportunities. And as long as you train yourself to open up your mind and observe around you, it will be, you're going to be successful at what you do. So, entrepreneur is somebody that creates opportunities and tries to market them. So don't wait for an opportunity just to appear in front of you, just to fall on your in front of your fate. Create the opportunity. Oops, yeah, it's there. Everybody has ideas. Everybody, you cannot stop your mind from thinking, okay? But the way to train yourself, to make yourself look around for problems and explore potential solutions, identify, see your space around you, make it, you cannot stop your mind from thinking. I mean, right now you'd say, okay, yeah, well, when is this guy gonna end? I mean, I'm really sick and bored of this guy. Maybe, or you might think of, yeah, that's a great person. I would like to meet him. very nice. You cannot stop your mind from thinking. Training your mind to think as an entrepreneur requires some effort. Looking around for problems, identifying solutions, generating ideas. The entrepreneur is the one that takes these ideas and turns them into opportunities. And the difference between idea and opportunity is essentially that the opportunity is an idea that has some marketable value, that somebody will pay for it. Okay, so we need to keep that in mind. Other entrepreneurial skills, we list them here as taken out of a textbook. I wouldn't like to go on discussing about them in great extent, but empathy, putting yourselves into the shoes of other people, viewing a condition from different perspectives outside your personal biases. So that's really, really important in order for you to being able to assess what is the problem, what is the real problem, and what solution shall I propose. Integrative thinking, again, it is entrepreneurship is a process where you are combining ideas and you innovate, and innovation mostly lies in interdisciplinary areas. So this is very important for you to understand that, again, unless you invent something radically new, innovation is combination of things that you already know or are already known, and you find new applications for them. So integrative thinking is very important for that matter. Being an optimist that there is always a better solution at what already exists, or I can solve this problem. It's really important. You need to experiment. You need to be able to try more and more new solutions. And obviously, you need to be able to collaborate, not only through different areas, but with people that they do have different knowledge and essentially combine areas of study, knowledge, and skills. Complementary areas. So how will you make it to become an entrepreneur? And then we shall move on failures that I've done and what we can learn out of these failures. So how can you identify problems around you? Because that's an entrepreneur does. I mean, he or she always identifies problems and tries to find certain solutions. So you need to observe, you need to feel, you need to think about issues that you face in your everyday life or in your area of study, in areas that you have a passion, you have a personal preference, you have knowledge, you have skill in these areas. So select these kind of areas and identify problems or extensions of what you already know, how you can combine things. This is really important for you to progress and innovate in your area of study. Other things, you need to be creative. You need to. You can also study the stories, the paths of successful entrepreneurs, and learn out of their success stories. What did they do right? What did they do right? Or unsuccessful entrepreneurs, failure cases, what was wrong. It is also equally important in order not to repeat failures of the past. And finally, you need to be persistent. You need, you will most certainly face a couple of failures here or there, over and over again, but you need to be persistent to make, to keep on attaining your goals. So what eventually you need to do is to keep going and to unfold your internal superhero. Well, now that I have your attention, we can keep on, going, okay? So don't expect me to, to unfold here and become a Superman. I'm not going to do that. That was just a funny picture. Yeah. Good. So, okay. Going forward, what we can learn out of my personal path and or not learn out of my personal path. We discussed about risks. You need to take risks, you need to accept risks, but assess them first. And throughout my career, I faced unfortunately, all systemic risks being taught in business schools or examined by venture capitalists or managers across the world. I faced problems of the legal environment, starting from my inability to reside in the United States legally without a visa, all the way to regulatory restrictions when I started my renewable energy company, and what was allowed, what not, or what I had to implement in order to proceed with certain things. So I faced certain risks throughout this process. The financial environment obviously also imposes a few risks. The current market conditions or the expectations you need to be assessed. Is it what you are going to implement going to attract a significant market? That means that you will have significant inflow of cash in order to continue to keep up with your venture. Then yes, keep on going. Or otherwise you need to be able to identify sources of financing sustainable enough to keep you going. The political environment, instability of the political environment, or governments that are in favor or not of private companies. Even right now we are facing a war between Ukraine and Russia that is affecting severely many companies, affecting supply chains. My shipping company right now, it is trembling because of this war. We have significant financial loss. Whether we are going to make it or not, who knows? But nevertheless, it is there. It is a risk that you will have to assess, and you have to improvise on certain solutions. The founding team, I already discussed, unfortunately, about my mishap when on my first shipping company. Again, it was a traditional shipping company, but nevertheless, it is there. You need to assess with whom you are going to cooperate with, and whether they have the skills, the competencies, the knowledge, and what it takes in order to keep on going. But don't expect that you can run your entrepreneurial venture alone. Nobody will fund you. Okay? You need a competent founding team at your entrepreneurial venture. Personal restrictions. You might have, I don't know, family restrictions or things that would restrict you from moving forward. You need to assess them before, what it takes before you will get into that. And finally, timing. Well, this is what certain people say, luck. Yeah, well, it is part luck, part educated guess about the market conditions, or if the technology is mature enough for you to accept and to implement whatever you are doing. Other lessons learned is that capital alone, don't think that if you have secured capital, financing, you're done. No, it is not a single precursor to success. Okay, it requires lots of effort from your side. It requires persistence. It requires that you will face failure, but you will stand up and keep on going. And obviously, you've got to realize that the end of a company or an idea is not the end of life. I mean, obviously, we hurt a lot because we have sacrificed personal time and effort, but it is a great process in order for us to learn, to educate ourselves, and move on to the next venture. So, coming back to the maritime industry and entrepreneurship, I know that if we would dare to make an analysis, as we teach in business classes like, Porter's competitive analysis and 5 forces and things like that, we can say that the maritime industry is a hostile environment, tough for newcomers because it is based on personal relationships. It is very resource intensive. It is heavily regulated. So you are facing all these risks that we have discussed already. I mean, the legal environment, the barriers to entry are there. However, there are good news. The maritime industry is based on very traditional technologies up to this moment. So it is desperate for innovation. Innovation in many different areas. So it offers lots of opportunities to invest, to apply new technologies, to innovate, and to create wealth. And the fact that it operates in the global environment means that you are not restricted by the narrow perspective of a certain country. You are not running the risks, political or financial, of a certain country, but you are running the global risks that might be more complex, but on an average, they are more stable. So enough with this analysis and my promotion of investing in the maritime industry as an entrepreneur. Let's see a few opportunities, and I've selected a few hot topics nowadays that are relating to your expertise. So the digital transformation of the maritime industry is coming, and we are already trying to implement it, or we are viewing a few precursors of applying high technology to the maritime industry in order to improve efficiency. So involving things like real-time control systems, unmanned vessels, augmented reality, promoting essentially with virtual reality or with simulators, providing training, so increasing security. Nobody will go against that. Or improving shipbuilding, identify how different components are being put together. Even operational conditions can be improved and safety can be enhanced by providing additional information on the bridge, on the screen to the captain. User interface, providing new interfaces for the shipping industry, being more user-friendly. It's very important. Analyzing, storing, assessing data. It is making guesses on the maritime industry via an abundance of data that we are receiving right now. It is really important. Connectivity with vessels. Now all vessels are connected real time with the internet. Do you know what the first question that we are receiving as a company when we are hiring a new crew member is? Is there Wi-Fi on board? That is the first question that we are receiving from a new crew member. And yes, of course, we are providing Wi-Fi on board vessels right now, and everybody is offering that. And unfortunately, we have seen, last year, we had a terrible accident because crew members were sailing too close to shore out of the Mauritius island. Why? Because they were trying to get Wi-Fi signal. Well, anyhow, right now, as we speak, I can log in from my mobile phone to any vessel in our company and see how the vessel is running, what are the parameters of the main engine, pressures, control systems, etc. And in the future, I might be able to even control them. But obviously, this increases the risk of a cybersecurity and threat of cybersecurity attack, and using vessels for malicious purposes. Internet of Things, obviously, in the maritime industry is a key thing, improving logistics, improving things, assessing conditions on a vessel. Remote applications, telemedicine. There is a company providing information, real-time information, God forbid if an accident happens on board. Providing real-time information on a vessel at the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific or wherever it is, in order to treat the seafarer that had the accident, or even online surveys. This is something that happened now due to the pandemic, but it certainly improves the efficiency. You can have classification societies survey the vessel remotely out of their offices. So certain facts can be already surveyed on board the vessel without even the surveyor ever reaching the vessel. Other hot topics, sustainability and climate change, also offers opportunities for application of highly technological aspects, like using alternative fuels. And there are lots of different aspects there, like, production, storage, distribution. Alternative sources of energy, like renewable sources, or even or energy harvesting, or even storage of energy on board, or combination of different energy systems. Again, lots of technological innovations are laying ahead of us in these sections. So I think that I gained time in order to finish up, to wrap up on time for Konstantinos. Thank you very much for your attention. I remain at your disposal for any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, George, for excellent presentation. I wish I were a student back then and having such exposure to this kind of insight. I think it's really valuable. So, guys, any questions for George? You better have some.
Thank you. One of the myths you said aren't actually true is that you need a lot of money to start a venture.
Yes.
I guess that depends a lot on the field. Can you give us a very quick overview of what the alternatives are if you don't have much capital available?
Well, you can always explore certain solutions. In what follows in subsequent lectures, you will hear from venture capitalists options of that you can have in order to fund your entrepreneurial venture. I've known many entrepreneurs that they did not have enough out-of-pocket funds to fund their own venture. And they raised capital in more than one ways, like securing capital from friends or from venture capitalists, or even bank loans. It is not. It shouldn't be the single reason for you of dropping an idea. You need to keep on developing of what you do have and discuss it with your peers in order to identify solutions there. Unless you are out there in the market going to search, to purchase a vessel that it is in the multi-million-dollar investment, you can implement a prototype, a proof of concept of your idea with a minimal amount of money, and then as you grow, you will attract more capital. That was the key of that stereotype that we wanted to break.
Next question, Pete.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the importance of the end game when you start? So, do you want to? Are you founding the company to exit, or and sell to another company? Or are you there to just do something cool until you retire. What are your thoughts on knowing that when you actually start?
Well, that's a very nice question. If you ask a venture capitalist what is the exit strategy, as they call it, of your venture, you will hear about, one of the most prominent solution is to sell the company to another company or to merge with a larger company in order to attract capital. So this is the first and most prominent way of doing business. Unfortunately, in the way that I am doing business, it didn't happen at the time when I had the chance. So maybe I've lost this. This is a personal failure of other sort. The second way of making money is to create profit, to generate profit. Obviously, this requires full-scale deployment of a company. So if it is a new venture, an entrepreneurial venture, then most probably you won't have all departments fully exploited and fully manned. Well, manned is not have personnel in each and every staffed. Excellent, thank you. I was trying to be politically correct. Again, generating profit might require more time for you to wait in order to get back out of your investment. The third way is going public, going for initial public offering at the stock market. Again, this requires a different way of staffing, creating a corporation, having an executive board of directors staffed by professional business people, not me as an engineer, having in some extent a business background. So depending on your idea, you might follow one path or another. In case something goes terribly wrong, obviously you need to have an exit strategy of how to stop loss rather than to keep on going. And it has happened to me in the past that certain ventures, I said, okay, yeah, I've lost enough. I'm pressing the end button. Okay, so you need to take a few tough decisions there.
Great. Any more questions for George? Yes, Igor.
So I'll ask a very easy question right now with a yes or no answer. What do you think that the current climate actually accommodates starting a new company, considering we're in a very big recession after a very big pandemic, where only the giants prosper and everyone is overly focused with the stock market and not actually making innovation on their own?
Well, I wouldn't say that this is a question that you respond with a yes or no. it takes a great deal of discussion. So there are many opportunities out there. And depending on what your talents or skills are, I would say go on. Regardless of what happens out there, try to implement your dream. And the risks will be there, will remain there, but try to assess them. Try to navigate, try to avoid. Okay, well, that's another risk, a fire alarm. Not anticipated events. Where is our contingency plan now?
So to me, this sounded like a yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Very good. Very good. But with a full explanation. Okay. Yes. Questions from the chat?
Yeah. It's a question by Mr. Alexis. So he says that thank you for the engaging presentation. It looks like most opportunities for startups in the maritime industry are linked to improving the industry's value chain. So he asked, do you see opportunities in disrupting the industry at a larger scale?
Well, the thing is that the maritime industry traditionally supports around 90% of the global trade, and I don't see that it can be disrupted that easily at the time being. The opportunities that I promoted here one way or another were mostly focused on the technological aspect that most of you are exposed to. There are obviously opportunities in other aspects. And yes, I fully agree that improving the supply chain or operations, the efficiency of operations in the maritime industry, it is a prominent field for research and development at the time. So innovation in operations, enhancing security in what lays ahead is key for the maritime industry.
Do we have any other questions on the chat, Mohammed? Okay. If not, let me thank George again. Thank you very much, George.